For all the UConn fans, you should be excited. But not because of the three-point shot and what Mullins did at the end of the game, because this is a freshman kid from Indiana. Didn't play very well in the Elite Eight game against Duke. As a matter of fact, he started off very, very slow. He didn't hit a three until the final shot of the game. I'm not going to blame Cayden Boozer because I know everybody all over social media, all the Duke fans are attacking him. He cried when he was interviewed by the media after the game, and you feel for the kid. You really do. You feel for the kid. And Cayden could go back and play one more year with Duke, and maybe next year wins the national title. Who knows? This is the final time we're going to see Cam Boozer in a Duke uniform. And Cam Boozer did not hide away from how he felt after the game. He believed they were a championship team. Proctor might be going into this year's draft. This is a kid that had a very good Final Four, very good tournament last year, came back to win a national championship with this team, fell short again. And Duke was built to win this year. They had enough to win a national championship. Even with the injuries they had, they belonged. They belong in the Elite Eight and the Final Four. But there were a lot of questions going into this game. Really, it was the battle of the coaches. Jon Scheyer versus Danny Hurley. And if I'm going to bet on a coach, I'm going to bet on Danny Hurley because he's done it twice in the last 5 years. Jon Scheyer, last year, fell short in the Final Four against Houston, bombed it with 2 minutes left, up by almost 12 or 13 points, choked. The team choked. They couldn't get the ball in. And Houston, who's not an offensive team, was shooting threes all over the court, just absolutely outplayed them the last 5-6 minutes of the second half. And Duke lost in regulation. Going into this game, could this team keep an early lead? And up by 15 after the first half, you would have thought Duke was going to run away with this game. Duke learned. Scheyer learned from the mistakes that they made last year against a Houston team that everybody believed they were better than. Cooper Flagg was on his way to be the number one pick, and everybody thought that team last year was good enough to win a championship, to win a national championship. And what did Duke do at the end of the season? They extended Jon Scheyer to a 5-year deal. He's one of the highest paid coaches right now in college basketball. Now, I'm not taking shots at Jon Scheyer. This isn't all Jon Scheyer's fault. But you call a timeout. You know you're up by 2. You know you're up by 2. And you know the only way that UConn can win the game is by 3. There's no way UConn wins the game unless you throw the ball away. And what I would say to my team when I'm on the sidelines, because you called your final timeout, is, boys, hold on to the ball. Get the ball. Get it across the court. Hold on to the ball. Let them foul you. You win the game. There is no way UConn wins the game because then you're putting somebody on the line. He's shooting 2. He's probably hit one of them, and that's a 4. That's more than enough in my eyes that they're going to be chucking up a 3. There's no way they're getting the ball in with 0.3 seconds and scoring a 3-pointer. I can't see it. But you gave Mullins and UConn 4.5 seconds to set up and get that shot off. And that in college basketball is an eternity. It's an eternity. And I don't know if I believe Danny Hurley believed that it was even possible for UConn to come back after what we have seen throughout this game. But UConn fought. And they fought, and they fought, and they fought right back into the game. And there wasn't like, when you look at the team and you look at the comparable pieces that UConn had going into this game, nothing really stuck out. Nobody besides Reed had a good game for UConn. Ball didn't have a good game. Damari didn't have a good game. Caravan didn't have a good game. None of them had good games except Reed. Reed had 26 points and 9 rebounds. So even their bench, if you look at UConn's bench, nobody besides, how do you pronounce his name? Reby? He's the only one that scored 2 points. Oh, I'm sorry, Smith did too. Smith had 9 points. So they had 2 guys on their whole bench that scored. That's it. And when you usually see something like this, and UConn's known to use their bench. Danny Hurley is known to use everybody on his bench. But he stuck with his top 5, and he believed in these guys. obviously believed in these guys. And when you look at it, and Pitino said it best, when you trust a player, it doesn't matter if they're 0 for 9 or 0 for 10. You're going to trust the ball in that guy's hands. And I don't know if it was drawn up or it was even thought of when the timeout came around. If we steal the ball, put it in Mullins' hands. I don't know if Danny Hurley planned that. But boy, oh boy, did he look smart. And Danny Hurley was jumping on the sidelines when Mullins hit that three. And as well as he should. Because I don't know if he really believed that it was possible for them to come back the way they were playing in the first half. They played horribly. There was nothing that stood out to me when it came to the Duke Blue Devils that they were going to lose that game. Nothing. And Boozer had a sensational game. Boozer played 38 minutes, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He had 2 blocks. He had his best game of the tournament. You want your superstar to stand out in the biggest games. Cooper Flagg in the Final Four game. Besides the Elite 8 game, he looked the best. But even in the Final Four game, he played well. You want your superstar player to stand out. And Cayden Boozer had the second best game for the Duke Blue Devils. He had 15 points. He probably had his best game in the tournament. But I believe he was too confident, and he rushed the pass. He wasn't looking around. There were other guys around him that he could have gotten the ball to. All he had to do was move the ball across the half-court line, and they win the game. And he was right there. He was like 5 feet away from that. Why are you throwing the ball away? Why are you forcing the ball in places that you aren't comfortable doing? And that has something to do with coaching. If you want to blame some things on Scheyer, that was the thing you blame. Because when you call a timeout, you had your final timeout. You're telling your point guard who's on the court, make sure you get the ball across the line. Don't force the ball. Don't put yourself in harm's way where you're giving them 4 to 5 seconds to get that ball off. Because at any given day, one of those guys shoot a three, it can go in. We've seen it. March Madness is the craziest thing. We've seen how many crazy things. Illinois did it. Iowa did it. There are other teams throughout the tournament that hit unbelievable shots at the tail end of the game, either to take it to overtime or win the game. This always happens. That's what's so fantastic to watch. When you watch March Madness, you're excited because you don't know what to expect. A 1 can beat a 16. A 2 can lose against a 13. We've seen this before. And it's not like UConn's a bad team. They were a number 2 seed. Duke had to know that Danny Hurley, for all the mischievous, crazy things that we've seen Danny Hurley do on and off the court, he had his team ready for this game. He had his team ready to commit if they fell behind in this game to push forward. And that's to me the value of a champion. The one thing you could say about a champion is you never say die. Champions find a way to win those games. Even if you're down by 20, you're down by 15, down by 5 with 1 minute left. You are not going to quit. And Danny Hurley is not one of those guys that quits. I know all about Danny Hurley in his career, even as a basketball player. He played for Providence. He was not a good college basketball player. As a matter of fact, his brother, Bobby, was a sensational one. Danny was never going to play NBA basketball. Bobby was drafted, got into a car accident, never flourished as an NBA player. I know because I'm a Bobby Hurley fan. But I knew the family. And their father, who was an elite high school coach in New Jersey, found a way to keep a basketball program open because they had no money. A private school that couldn't keep it open. The only thing that kept that school open was their basketball program. That says a lot about the Hurley family. All 3 of these guys found a way. Bobby Hurley won 2 national championships with the Duke Blue Devils. Danny Hurley has already won 2 national championships with UConn. And their father won 28, 29 state championships. They're from a winning family. And when you go against a family of talented, smart athletes or professional coaches, and I don't know what Bobby Hurley is as a NCAA coach. I don't know what he is because he never went to a good program. And until he gets to a program that can recruit the right players. We'll never know what Bobby Hurley is as a head coach. But we know what Danny Hurley is. Danny Hurley is a winner, a born winner. Nobody's going to take that away from him anymore. This guy took 3 teams to the Final Four in 4 years. How many coaches in NCAA history has done that? I'm going to tell you, probably not more than a handful. Maybe not even that much. I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's not easy to do something like that. And it says a lot about their coach. It says a lot about what that regime has done for UConn basketball. Remember, he took over for a coach that won a national championship. And then again, when you talk about all the different things that UConn and the trials and tribulations that UConn had to go through after last year. If we remember what happened last year and UConn lost early in the tournament. I think it was the Sweet 16.
Round of 32 against Florida, and Hurley came out. We talked about it. He was venting at the refs.
So it was the round of 32. After that, Danny Hurley, after the game, I remember what he said. He blamed the refs and he said, we'll be back next year. And then 60 minutes after the tournament, interviewed Danny Hurley in his basement, his little man cave. And I remember it. And they asked him, what is the value of success? And Danny Hurley said, win. That's the only word of success. If you don't win, there is no success. And this man has found a way. Jon Scheyer, who has had some of the best recruiting classes in the last 3 years, has not bought a win. He hasn't even played in a national championship. He has 2 guys right now in the NBA fighting for Rookie of the Year. One that's broke the rookie three-point field goal percentage in his first year as a rookie. And the other one who's a superstar on the Dallas Mavericks who's going to be the face of United States basketball. Somebody's got to take responsibility. Somebody's got to. Because Cayden Boozer is heading off to the NBA draft. You're going to get another top end or not top 2 recruits next year. When is it going to be enough for Duke? When is it going to be enough for the program to understand this guy's not a winner? He's not a born winner. Look, it took North Carolina a couple of years to realize that Hubert Davis is not the guy. We all knew that he wasn't the guy. I don't think anybody's blindsided to understand what the Duke Blue Devils stand for college basketball. Coach K, the Dukies, going up 15 points and a half. There was no way UConn comes back in this game. Not the way Cayden Boozer was playing, not the way the team was playing defensively, not the way UConn couldn't put a bucket in the net for 5 minutes at the tail end of the first half. They looked horrible. Forster came back with a broken foot?
Foot fracture, yeah. He was never supposed to come back at all.
And he played for 14 minutes in this game. No points. He played a big part of them in the Sweet 16, moving on to the Elite 8. Why wasn't he used as much as he should have been used in this game? And I'm not taking shots at Cayden, but you saw throughout this tournament when Cayden had too much of the ball, commanded too much of the ball, he made mistakes. Forster is your veteran. This might be his final year playing college ball. I think it is his final year playing college ball. I would trust more in my veteran than a rookie who has not had enough time on the basketball court all season because of the Duke's depth. A lot of people are looking at Mullins and they're giving him a lot of credit. And Mullins, he's got a nice smile. He's a nice kid. I know we were talking to Mike V, our manager, throughout our meetings yesterday, and he says, he's a prominent first-round draft pick. I don't know about that. I think he plays another year in college basketball, gives himself a little bit more time under Danny Hurley before he decides to go into an NBA draft. But he didn't stand out in this tournament. Mullins did not. He's a freshman. He's nice to watch. He's got a great shot. He's an Indiana alum. He's a high school champion, state champion in Indiana. You know, there's great basketball to be played in Indiana. Everybody knows that Indiana basketball is everything. But he didn't have a great game. Nobody on this UConn team had a great game. Nobody except Reed. So what does it tell me about the Duke Blue Devils going into the offseason now? Jon Scheyer has one more year to prove himself to win a national championship, or at least get this team in a national championship. That's one. And he's got 2 recruits. One that's, I think, number 2 in the world, number 2 in the country coming out of college, coming out of high school. He's heading to play for Duke, and I think they have the number 4 that's going to Duke next year. Coming to this roster and this team that's still fully loaded, still has a loaded team. So if Scheyer doesn't get this team into the finals next year, he has to be fired. You can't put talent after talent after talent and fall short. Look at Kentucky. John Calipari, for years, had the best recruiting classes. And he won a national championship or 2 in Kentucky. He found a way to get these guys to come and play in Kentucky. I don't know. At the time, there was no NIL deal, so who knows if they were paying him under the table. We all know what happened in Memphis. Yeah. We know the whole Derrick Rose thing. After the fact that he was drafted by Chicago. Everybody knows that story. Who do you think was behind that? John Calipari. Why do you think John Calipari parted ways with Kentucky? And Kentucky parted ways with him? Because the time was ready. It was ready to move on. There was no more Calipari in Kentucky. Calipari realized that it was time to move on. That's why he went to Arkansas. That's why he took that contract. And that's why he moved on. And I'm not saying Jon Scheyer is at that level yet, because John Calipari won national championships before that. And he did it with different teams. Jon Scheyer has one more year. The director over there at Duke, for Duke basketball, has one more year. If this team cannot get in to a national championship, there's no way this team keeps this coaching staff, this director, and move forward in the future with this team. There's nothing here that tells me that I'm excited about the Duke Blue Devils next year. I don't trust Jon Scheyer. I told everybody about Jon Scheyer. I never respected the fact that Coach K, out of all the guys he could have picked, all the guys, he picked Jon Scheyer. Why? Because Jon Scheyer has been licking his ass for the last 5 years on the sidelines, kissing his rear end, going to practices and calling the offense? What is it? Because Jon Scheyer's face is going to be a meme for the rest of the year. Did anybody see his face when Mullins hit that three-pointer? It was more than shocked. It was like, oh man, I got to go and take a dump. I probably crap myself. I better be wearing my diaper tonight.
Flabbergasted.
He was absolutely shocked that went in. That was almost a half-court shot. It was 5 feet away from it. It was unbelievable. And it wasn't just like it banged off a rim and it tapped in. Remember the Halliburton shot when he beat the Knicks? Yeah. When it jumped off the rim up and it fell right in. And everybody was like shocked and it went to overtime. Remember that? It wasn't like that.
Minutes.
It was a swish. That went right in. Mullins looked like he was shocked himself. It was like, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what to say after that shot went in. But I can tell you what Cayden Boozer was thinking. Why did I do that? I just cost my brother and my team a national championship because they were on their way. There's no way they lose against Illinois. There's no way Duke loses against Illinois. No way. There's no way in hell. They go to a national championship. Jon Scheyer looks like he's a genius. Maybe they lose. If they lose against Arizona or they lose against Michigan, who knows? But at least they get to that national championship, what Jon Scheyer's been fighting for the last couple of years. Now there's no national championship. Jon Scheyer is going to be back to the drawing board. Duke is going to be back to the drawing board. They're going to be wondering, what do we need to do? What did we do wrong? Why did this happen? It's always why? And what Jon Scheyer said at the end of the game makes no sense. It doesn't. None of it does. I know there's a lot of people that stand for what they believe. And he says, well, we practice this every single practice. We practice this every single time we're out there and we're practicing these particular situations. Well, if you practice it, the first thing you're telling the player is don't throw the ball away. Hold on to the ball. Let them foul you. There's 4 seconds or 5 I don't remember how much, 5 seconds left of the game. Don't throw the ball away. Get it across. They had a chance. Cayden had one guy to beat. All he had to do was walk right past that line 5 feet away from him. The game's over. They foul him. He hits one of those free throws. There's no way they shoot a three. There's no way they're going to be able to shoot a half court. They would have to force the ball like Duke had to do at the end of the game. There was no way that was going to happen.